What up? What up? What up? Morning. How are you? Welcome to the program. Robin Lundberg Show here in full effect. Look, lots to get to today. It's funny. The amount of crash outs that happen when the Fever lose and there's a chance to go after Stephanie White is very amusing to me, which we'll get to in just a second. The Dallas Wings with a good troll after the game too. They said better luck next time with this Stranger Things logo, Stranger Wings, I guess you could call it, which to me that's fair game, right? Like, there should be no crying or being upset about that. The Wings stink, but they have a chance to rub it in. They should. The Fever talked a lot of smack before the season. That's what you get. That's what you get. No big deal. No harm. No foul. As far as everything else goes, let's get into it right now. And there's a few things, including, the criticism of Stephanie White after the game. And on top of that, the criticism of the referees from Stephanie White after the game. Not to mention a possible Caitlin Clark return timeline. So all that to touch on. Let's start with the end of the game, because I did talk about that last night. But a lot of people, I think, are trying to make the entire game about like 2 seconds, which generally is not the case. Look, I mean, people criticize end of game situations all the time, but the bottom line with end of game situations is it's hard to get a good shot. It's hard to get a good shot in those situations. Like, it generally, when the time is winding down, you see some sort of heave or something like that happen because the defense is also prepared. And so Stephanie White, in not calling the timeout to start with, was trying to keep the defense on their heels. As you see, this is where the ball was caught by Natasha Howard. Lexi Hull about to take off. Kelsey Mitchell about to take off next to her. Sophie Cunningham's going to be trailing on the play. Now, one thing I think that could be coached by Stephanie White is for Natasha Howard to not bring the ball up so much, or if she's going to bring the ball up, to look for a guard a lot quicker. A lot of times Howard has been in that situation where she's gotten the ball and then not gotten the ball to a guard. But if you look at the next screen grab there, this is the situation. 10.7 seconds left. You see Lexi Hull running down the floor. You've got Sophie Cunningham's going to come as the trailer. If Natasha Howard just tosses the ball to Kelsey Mitchell there, Mitchell is going downhill against a retreating defense. So I think that was problem number one. Now, eventually, they got stuck in a situation where Mitchell didn't have much, and Stephanie White could have called the reset timeout earlier, which she mentioned post-game. I mean, this was her breakdown of the entire situation from the Fever coach as to why she didn't call the timeout and how she saw the situation.
It's tricky when you have a quasi-transition chance late, but did you consider a timeout earlier on that last trip? Did you like your last shot? What all went into that last?
No, I mean, I wanted us to, we knew it was going to be a low clock when we got it out, and we had been really good in transition. So and we were in the penalty. So I wanted us to outlet and attack in transition. When it got to the point where we didn't attack and we just started dribbling sideways, I probably should have used it at the 3-second mark instead of a little bit later. I thought Kels might have had a baseline drive, that she ended up coming back to the middle. And so I didn't like that. But I did want us to push in transition with a low clock and, limited opportunity.
Which makes complete sense. Everything she just said there makes complete sense, especially, you're in the penalty, all those things. As far as the way that Kelsey Mitchell got the ball and got stalled there, these things happen, they're happening in real time. Stephanie White's watching this in real time. She doesn't have some great grid or map that's telling her what's going to happen later. I mean, these are things that don't deserve the level of scrutiny they're getting as far as real-time decisions, because she's going to want to give the ball to Kelsey Mitchell and let her create regardless, right? So she's probably thinking, maybe Kelsey can create here. Maybe Kelsey can make something happen here. It didn't work out. They lost the game. But I just feel like people are just waiting for any reason to attack Stephanie White and blame Stephanie White for things, when overall she's done a pretty damn good job over the course of the season. And no, I'm not being a Fever shill or I'm not compensated by the Fever to say these things. I just look at the big picture and where the Fever are relative to the season. And I don't really see why that's such a huge issue or like people are acting like it was the mistake of the century. You're also dealing with a team that is down all of its point guards. Its best player is out in Caitlin Clark. And then, the loss of Ari McDonald is a big one. That's the Sydney Colson, it sucks that she's hurt. But the loss of Ari McDonald is a big one. Because not only did they need her with Caitlin Clark out, but they needed that player with Caitlin Clark back as well. And without her, Odyssey Sims just wasn't ready for prime time. Sophie Cunningham is doing everything that she can. She's doing everything that she can. And she's a heck of a player. In the way I see Sophie talked about by some people, she's kind of underrated now because she's a baller. And she's one of the Fever's most important players. I'd put her, top 4. So with the other All-Stars at this point. And then, the rotations I see people criticize. When you're down as many players as the Fever are down, Stephanie White's going to play some. She's good. Brianna Turner played 4 minutes in the game. Timpson got 5. Odyssey Sims got 13 to be tried out. Dantas has given them nothing this year. She should probably be glued to the bench other than specific matchups. And Chloe Bibby got 12 minutes. Nobody played a bunch of minutes that it was out of line with a normal rotation. And generally, the beginning of the fourth quarter is when starters sit. Like that you watch NBA games all the time. That's when the stars sit down. The end of the third, beginning of the fourth to come back for the stretch run down the fourth. So, I really don't. The beginning of the fourth is usually when you see those kind of minutes. Then there's the foul stuff and what White called out after the game. Here's what she said regarding double standards.
I didn't think our attention to detail on defense was very good. They got loose for some easy ones. We started fouling, getting to the free throw line, and turning the ball over. There were moments where, there's no transition defense for turnovers for scores. And, we had multiple in a row. 27 points off of turnovers. And, I felt like our group did some uncharacteristic things. Well, all of our point guards are injured. I think that's the first thing. And again, it's one of those things. Dallas turned up the pressure. Defensively, they made it a little bit more difficult for us to bring down the ball and initiate offense, and became a little bit more disruptive. And we're working Odyssey into what we do, but still, it's tough because point guards are the ones who get you organized. And there were times where we weren't organized. There were times where we were over dribbling, got away from our off-ball actions and went straight to trying to go one-on-one. It was a physical game. I think there's a double standard in how people get their calls. I think Kelsey Mitchell, number one, is held or chucked on every freaking possession and never gets a call off the ball. I think Aaliyah Boston is the worst officiated post player in the league. She never gets a call. There's a double standard there, certainly. But again, if it's going to be physical and you're gonna allow us to be physical, then allow both teams to be physical. If you're going to call the holds and you're going to call the chucks and you're going to then call it both ways. So I think that we've been pretty consistent in what we're asking for, and I didn't feel like it was consistent, especially for those two. I think you could call a foul every time down the floor for those two.
So look, Stephanie White is doing what she can as a coach there. I don't know. A lot of times that stuff falls on deaf ears, but she's called out the officiating many times this season. Aaliyah Boston, this is how you know how much motion the Fever have, because now all of a sudden there's like debates about Aaliyah Boston. Post play I'll give the refs some grace on post play because there's a lot of fighting for position. Even the Boston Euro play at the end, I didn't have as much a problem with as everybody else is because they're jockeying for position, and that's tough to call. My issue is more with the perimeter officiating. the closeout that was called on Sophie Cunningham, but not called on Grace Berger. I don't really see the distinction or difference there. Not to mention the grabbing and stuff that's allowed on the perimeter, which has been brought up a bunch. But when Caitlin Clark is back, the Fever should be in the penalty mad quick because the fouls should rack up mad quick because of how often Caitlin Clark is grabbed and the physical play that happens on the perimeter. And the Fever, like when you have a play like this, people are going to look sideways at the situation when Sophie Cunningham gets shoved by Paige Beckers and they call a foul on Sophie Cunningham. That's going to lead to some reaction from fans. So, there you have it. As far as that goes, that's the way I look at the game and the result and how it all shook out. Then there is the Caitlin Clark return factor. The Fever lose the game, and you want them to win the game, of course, if you're a Fever fan. You don't want them to fall in the standings. Now they are only 10 and a half, 11. What are they? Like 2.5 games up on falling out of the playoffs altogether. So that's, always a little concerning. But they're still only a half game out of 5th and 2 games out of 4th. And they do have the Mystics and the Sun coming up next. You would have to hope for, at worst, a split between those 2 games. Between the Mystics and the Sun, at worst a split before those Lynx games. But once you get to those Lynx games, that is when you're hitting Caitlin Clark return territory. That is when you are starting to think about Clark being on the floor. Minnesota, August 22nd. Minnesota, August 24th. Seattle, August 26th. That range of games. The latter target, of course, being the safest, given the 2 Lynx games are in a compressed period of time. A tough opponent. One of them's on the road. But that's when you're looking at the Caitlin Clark return timeline, which was stated plainly on the broadcast last night. But this idea that Caitlin Clark is not out for the season, barring a setback. She is working her way toward a return. I have a good understanding, about that situation as far as, she's this is not a, shut down situation. The point is to get back on the floor and help the team. And it was said on the broadcast last night that Stephanie White hopes Clark returns to practice next week. They have a break between the 17th and the 22nd to reacclimate her to practice. And then again, those games that I just stated are the reasonable dates for her to return. So I would expect Caitlin Clark to be practicing next week. And then I would expect Caitlin Clark to be back on the floor between the 22nd and the 26th. You can call me whatever you want or believe me. Because I'll just say I got a good sense about it. So there you have it. And literally, you don't even have to. They said it on the broadcast last night. It doesn't require inside information. But remember, Caitlin Clark has had a long time now to heal. So there's the healing part, and then there's the rebuilding part. And I have to suspect a lot of this time off is to make sure she was right, make sure her mechanics was right, make sure she's built back up the right way. And the silver lining, if you want to look for one, is that she hasn't taken the toll of the season on her body. So when she comes back, she could be fresher from like the odometer standpoint. But she's going to return to practice next week, barring a setback. And then those games that were mentioned are clearly, the rough timeline for the return. even though there's still no set timeline publicly, but reading the tea leaves. How about that? So whether it's the 22nd, that's the most optimistic, and then maybe the 26th is the most realistic. Get member chats, super chats. Well, Ryan said it on the game last night, Brandon. So, you know, you don't need any sourcing for that. Kevin Zwicker says sides greater than white. I mean, no. I think Stephanie White is a good coach. Katie says the game was a good example of why point guard is important. Needed the playmaking and fast thinking decisions and end of game. Yeah, I mean, look, you can't celebrate what happened against the Sky when the celebration was based on the Fever being shorthanded and without a point guard, and then crush them for what happened. A lot of what happened yesterday was points off turnovers for the Wings. So, I mean, I don't want to, like, of course, it's a big deal. That was why people reacted to what happened to Ari and what happened to Sidney Colson. Jane says, what does Ryan know? What he said on the broadcast last night, Jane, that Stephanie White told them. Like, this is public information. Let me find. I think I have the clip from the broadcast. Hang on. That way nobody can argue with what is being stated here. This is not me or not things that weren't public information. Where is this video? Oh, let's see if I can do this. Because I didn't tweet it out or anything. Yeah, here we go.
Indiana will play Washington on Friday at home, then at Connecticut, who has the worst record in the league, on Sunday. Then they have a week off before playing Minnesota twice, home Seattle. You see the way the schedule finishes up. Their final regular season game will have on our air September 9th. Now that stretch where they have the week off is where Stephanie White reiterated to us today she's hoping Caitlin Clark returns to practice.
So there you go. And then he went on to speculate about the take a good sort of guesstimate about the timeline of the return games after that. So that's on the broadcast. Stephanie White says she hopes Caitlin Clark returns to practice next week. I don't know where else you need that from. And of course, then that would make sense with those games being the target dates. Yeah. Thank you, Smalingo. Savage Coffee Tea. You still down for that sponsorship? Appreciating the lack of 15 clickbait videos a day, Rob. Look, there's an easier way to make money. I could go for it, but I do have some standards. Carol Ryan says Stephanie White is trying to juggle lineups. She's trying different combos to see how they work. Give her some grace. Yeah, I mean, I do give her some grace. I feel like Stephanie White has done a great job. Like, I don't understand what the issue is. I really don't. What did you expect? With Caitlin Clark out for as much of the season as Caitlin Clark has been out for, with DeWanna Bonner out for, whatever that was. And with the fact that they're integrating hardship players and then those players are getting hurt, and, Sophie Cunningham was hurt at the beginning of the season. What do you want? Oh, Lakers says, reporter Scott Agnes said CC is out for a few more weeks. Well, the coach of the Fever said that she'll be back in practice next week. Most likely. They're hoping. Let me make sure I use the appropriate terms. Which means, you have to, you have to couch for the possibility given what's happened. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect process. But the indications are, if you watch Caitlin Clark move around, if you know what the initial injury was, and if you see the fact that it's already been more than 4 weeks, look, next week would make 5 weeks since the injury. And then after that, basically would be 6 weeks she would be out. And the last, 10 days or so would be used to prepare her to return to play, which makes sense. If Caitlin, look, they didn't hesitate. Like Ari McDonald and Sydney Colson were ruled out for the season. And I understand the economic aspect that's different with Caitlin Clark. I get it. I understand where the conspiracy theories come from. But the lack of a timeline, I believe, was always to not put pressure on Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark puts pressure on herself, given the responsibility that she has to the league, and to allow her to get right so that she is Caitlin Clark when she returns. But you really think, knowing Caitlin Clark, she ain't trying to come back and possibly couldn't be feeling better than she has all season with this time off? I'd imagine she is. She never had that break to get right before. And the team is in playoff contention. The WNBA has a long-ass offseason. You only have so many shots at these things. JC Sheldon incoming, and she could have a chip on her shoulder for Sophie. Well, look, I mean, Sophie can handle her own business. Sophie can handle her own business. Sides deserves more credit than she got. I also got yelled at for giving Sides more credit than others. But I think Stephanie White is better overall. Again, some grace for Stephanie White. It's just like people just want to hate her so bad. Let's do it. Hit me up. How do we get in contact with each other? Well, you've DM me. Let's pick it up there. Peggy says, does anybody want tickets to the Sun game on August 17th? Good seats. I can't make it from North Carolina. And then everybody who says these Stephanie White problems, they never tell me what they are. They just say she's terrible. What is the issue? She could have called a timeout 1.5 seconds sooner one time last night. That's it. Okay, what's your argument against Stephanie White? I'm a chump. What's your argument why I'm a chump? Empty insults and just blanket statements with no substance to them are meaningless. They mean nothing. They have no impact. I do not make any money. I probably could get more videos if I said fire Stephanie White. You don't think I get more views? None of what I'm saying is influenced by anyone, y'all. I'm sorry. Not you, not the Fever, not nothing. I'm just sharing what I think. You can disagree. Ben says, overall, just a super disappointing loss. Didn't deserve to win with all the sloppy turnovers, but officiating continues to be a turnoff being a fan of this league. Yeah, the officiating is inconsistent. Stern says, yet another Yukon princess getting tap calls, yet they can rip Boston's arm off. Paige. Here's the thing with Paige. One thing Paige is suffering from is the Caitlin Clark comparisons, to be honest with you. Because Caitlin Clark generates so much engagement and so much attention, the knee-jerk reaction from some is to be like, Paige is better than Caitlin, right? Like, okay, they throw that out there. But then the opposite end of that spectrum is people go extra hard to try to tear Paige down because of they resent those comparisons. When Paige has had a very, very good season, does she get a good whistle? Maybe at times. I'm sure she gets contact against her too. I mean, she's talked about having to learn how to foul in the WNBA. Paige is an excellent player who's got a great career ahead of her. I don't think she's in Caitlin Clark's league, really, personally, because of, to me, the difference is the pressure that Caitlin Clark puts on a team and the playmaking that Caitlin Clark does. Paige doesn't, I don't think, pressure the defense in quite the same way because she's generally not getting to the cup. She also doesn't shoot from the outside as much as I think she probably should, and hopefully she gets there. She is unreal in the mid-range. That's where she's better than Caitlin Clark. Her mid-range game is certainly better than Caitlin Clark's. But beyond that, I just think Caitlin puts so much more pressure on the defense because of her ability to get downhill and because of her ability to play make. And that is the difference to me. But I think, Tulip, Caitlin does get to the cup. She's one of the best finishers in the league, too. She finished layups better than Asia Wilson last year. Well, everybody's going to take advantage of the situation, War Dog, until it doesn't work in their favor. Yeah. Stephanie White took advantage of it against the Fever last year. So there's my thoughts on it, really. Member chat, super chats go first. We'll do another members only event this month at some point. I am so biased. Again, tell me how I'm biased. How? If you think I'm biased, that's fine. But blanket statements and insults without any supporting evidence or argument are meaningless. They have no effect. They mean nothing. You have to then articulate your position. I am always articulating my position. Do you hear me not articulating my position? I've been articulating my position for a half hour now on various things. Again, blanket statement with no substance. Y'all are hilarious. I'm not putting any more of those up unless they're member chats or super chats, or you have an actual point. You must come with a point. I will have a debate. I will accept criticism. I will argue. But I ain't just accepting your declarative sentence with no substance behind it. Tay Boogie. Fever called for 17 fouls, took 19 free throw attempts, called for 19 fouls, took 15. This is not the game for Steph to cry about officiating. Yeah, I think the officiating issues come down to a couple plays in this one, maybe. The arm hold that was controversial. I didn't have as much a problem with that. The Berger closeout versus the Cunningham closeout, the Page push on Sophie, there's a couple specific plays. Smedo says you never bring the longer statements that articulate the points, only short ones. That's because they don't exist, bro. if they're there, I would bring them up. I'm not being selective. At least put the chat in subscription only mode so the trolls have to earn their comment. Well, the problem with that would be then I can't get, then nobody can chat who isn't a subscriber. And not to mention the super chats sometimes come from people who aren't subscriber only mode, subscription only mode. Interesting. Okay. I'd have to look at it. But I don't mind some trolls too. I mean, I think it provides a little entertainment value. I just want a healthy, actual discussion and dialogue. Again, I don't mind you disagreeing. I don't even mind you calling me out. I don't mind you, any of that stuff. Just know I'm not going to say anything without something behind it. Or if I am just speculating or theorizing or whatever, I'll lead with that. Kevin says, need Clark back ASAP, no Rocky. Peggy says, if they lose to another bad team and they fall out of the playoffs, CC should not return. We are already dropped to 6. Well, if they're in the playoffs at all and she's healthy, if Caitlin Clark, the only reason Caitlin Clark should not return is if she's at risk for further injury or her career is at risk for further injury. Otherwise, it makes absolutely no freaking sense for her not to return. The Fever are in playoff position. She's had the requisite time to get ready. They are doing it the right way. There's just, you only have so many years in a career. They don't play again until May after this. There's just no reason for her not to play. That makes no sense to me. You don't want them to just be like, imaginary players. You got to be real players. So, I mean, that's the way I look at the situation. Get your likes and subscribes in. Again, member chats, super chats, go first. We'll do another members only event at some point this month. We'll do one a month. I'm going to make sure I'm rewarding the members. Hold on one second, y'all. Rohan, mommy's not home. You want to come say hi on the show? Rohan? Yeah, come here. Come say hello. Come on. Yeah, you wearing clothes? You need clothes, bud. You need clothes. Go get some shorts. Okay. I'm in the middle of the show. I'm going to bring him. I will bring him on. I just need to get him dressed. He doesn't have clothes. Give me 1 second. Here, come here. Say hello.
Hello.
So, Rohan, I got little kids on a college schedule. This kid just slept until what, 11 a.m. Who's your favorite basketball player?
LeBron James.
Who's your favorite girls basketball player?
Nobody.
Nobody? You know the answer.
Okay, thank
Caitlin Clark? Yeah. Who's your favorite wrestler?
Twice.
What?
John Cena, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Penta, Rey Mysterio, Cody Rhodes, Undertaker, Roman Reigns, and Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso.
Do you think WNBA officiating is good or bad?
Good.
You do? I don't know about that. You might get some disagreement there. And then, is your dad, do you have a good dad or no?
No, you stupid dad.
Hey! Are you serious? Take that back.
Okay, he's a loving dad.
All right, now go upstairs.
Bye, Daddy.
Bye, buddy. That is Big Ro. Sorry for the interruption there, but I had to get him prepared. He's a handful. You know, he's the worst of he is a hilarious guy, but he's also the worst of the three in a way. But nonetheless. All right, member chats, super chats, if any of them are left. Otherwise, I'll probably have to wrap this thing up pretty soon here. Late to the cast. I don't understand why the Fever doesn't waive SC and AM. They don't get full pay. It fills up another roster spot. Well, because I think at this point, it doesn't really make sense because they can still keep one of the players on a hardship contract, and they've been at 11 players all year long anyway. So I don't know how that helps that much, other than, yes, it would free up one more roster spot. But I don't know if it's worth the morale blow at that point. SegMag Solution says, do you have a preferred platform to receive longer form explanations about one's stance on the issues of the day? Chat is pretty limited. Yeah, if you DM me on X, that probably, or just at me, that's probably a better way. Carol Ryan says, great fun, good show. Tired of the SW haters. Money Mike gave me a shout out. Who's Money Mike? Sorry if I apologize if I don't know. Money Mike. I mean, I'm not trying to. I appreciate the shout out from Money Mike. I did not earn that belt behind me. Rohan is now trying to wake up Raj, who I think is still sleeping. My wife and daughter are out, so they left me. To navigate this daddy duty and do my stream here. It's Raj's belt, Kevin. He let me use it though. Thank you, JR. So, that tweet on the wall is just because of the I told Kevin Durant I would hang it on the wall. I just thought it was a funny bit. I mean, all that stuff is open to being reshuffled at some point. Couple more chats. Did Steph own the bad clock management on the reset timeout? She did say that she perhaps could have called the reset timeout a little bit sooner. So like 3 seconds instead of 1.7 seconds. I don't think the rest of it was bad clock management. I agree. And in real time, that's also hard to assess, right? Like when you see Kelsey Mitchell dribbling the ball like that, you never know when she's going to break free and score and get open or create for herself. And it took a second to realize she was in trouble, and that's when she called the timeout. So perhaps she could have called the timeout a little bit sooner. Nancy, thank you with the sticker. Appreciate it. All right, I may have to go take care of the child. He's coming back. What's up? You need help? You can't find Raj? He's not in his bed or up in his room?
I was screaming, and then I couldn't get it.
Oh, my goodness. All right, I'll help you. Can I have 2 more minutes?
Now I'm staying.
You can stay in here. Just go over there. Money Mike has some really deep basketball knowledge, and I believe his brother is a sports agent. What did he shout me out about? Just curious. Bibby was signed to the end of the year contract, for those of you talking about Bibby in the chat. So, yes, she's going to be with the team the remainder of the year. She can really shoot the ball. She can really shoot the ball. Not a defensive stalwart, but she can really shoot it. And when Caitlin comes back, that's another outlet for her out in the corner. Chris Ward said, what did you think of the Sue Bird? CC had some interesting things to say, especially about the players in the league versus her time at Iowa under Lisa Bluter. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was, look, she loves Lisa Bluter, and Lisa Bluter, played in a way that maximized Caitlin Clark's style for sure. I don't, my problem, I guess, is that everybody seems to think if it's like, it's either Lisa Bluter or bust, like that nobody else has any basketball knowledge or acumen or philosophy. And like Lisa Bluter's not the coach of the Fever. And Caitlin Clark also in college faced much crappier defense than she's playing in the WNBA. And in the WNBA, you're also going to need more players probably, contribute. Even in college, you ran into that situation where they were just out-talented. So I think obviously Lisa Bluter was an unbelievable coach and role model for Caitlin Clark and showed a formula for how to unlock Caitlin's many talents. But there have been a lot of players who've been frustrated with other players on the floor and not being in the right spots or not, spacing the floor correctly. It's not just Caitlin. All right, y'all. That will probably do it for me today. Another good chat here. Thank you, Brett, and thanks to Mike. Good promotion he shouted me out. We can promote his stuff right here. All right, y'all. That'll do it for today. Good morning, Wayne. I don't know what this Caitlin Clark versus Stephanie White thing comes from, as if they're mortal enemies or something. They might not always see eye to eye. They may have some disagreements on strategy and philosophy, but they're not, they're working towards the same goal, y'all. That's the part of it I don't really understand. You can hit that like button. All right, y'all. Till the next one.